Commander Zaxtil's holographic form cast deep shadows across the United Earth Defense Council chamber, his triple segmented eyes gleaming with barely concealed contempt. The massive alien's exoskeletal armor bore the marks of 17 successful planetary conquests, each etched with a precision that spoke of pride and ruthlessness. "Your terms of surrender are," he paused, mandibles clicking in what his species considered a patronizing smile, "generous for a civilization that has barely managed to reach its own moon." Dr. Amanda Collins clutched her datapad tighter, her hands trembling just enough to be noticeable. The chief diplomat's voice wavered as she responded, "Commander, surely there's room for peaceful coexistence. Earth has many resources we could share." A sound like grinding metal filled the chamber, Zaxtil's version of a laugh. Behind him, the holographic display showed his fleet, 300 warships, each nearly the size of Manhattan, their hull plating decorated with the same conquest marks that adorned their commander. "Share." The alien's secondary arms flexed in amusement. "The hegemony does not share, Dr. Collins. We take what we want, and we want everything. Your planet's location is too strategic to ignore, your resources too valuable to leave in such." He gestured at the council chamber's simple architecture, primitive hands. Admiral Jessica Carter sat at the far end of the chamber, her face partially hidden behind her ancient-looking tablet computer. If anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed the slight upturn of her lips, a ghost of a smile that seemed entirely out of place given the situation. "Our scans show your orbital defenses consist of exactly 78 satellites, most of them devoted to your primitive communications network." Zaxtil's secondary arms brought up a holographic display of Earth's orbital space. "Your most advanced weapons platform cannot even target my scout ships effectively." "Please," Dr. Collins' voice cracked perfectly. "We'll need time to evacuate our major cities if you're going to." "You have 6 hours." The commander's primary arms crossed in what he considered a magnanimous gesture. "This is twice what I usually offer. Use this time wisely. Gather your leaders, your best minds, your most valuable cultural artifacts. When my fleet begins its approach, I will accept your formal surrender and begin the integration of Earth into the hegemony." As the transmission ended, the chamber remained silent for exactly 30 seconds. Then Admiral Carter finally looked up from her tablet, her earlier hint of a smile now a full-fledged grin. "Did you get all that, Lieutenant Commander Roberts?" A voice crackled through the chamber speakers, transmitted from deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. "Every word, Admiral. The quantum grid is at 98% coverage." He didn't even notice the calibration signals we were bouncing off his fleet's shields. Dr. Collins straightened, all signs of trembling gone from her now steady hands. "I still think the coffee spill during tomorrow's follow-up meeting might be overkill." On the contrary, Admiral Carter stood, her tablet screen finally visible, to reveal real-time analytics of the hegemony fleet's vulnerabilities being compiled with each word. They'd let Zaxtil speak. "The more incompetent we appear, the less likely he is to look closely at those primitive satellites. Speaking of which," she turned to a junior officer. "How many did he count?" 78, Mom." The young officer's face bore the same knowing smile that had infected the rest of the room. "He missed the other 8,000 that are running in stealth mode, not to mention the dimensional pocket fleets." Admiral Carter nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. 17 planetary conquests, and he still hasn't learned the most important lesson in warfare. She looked up at the spot where Zaxtil's hologram had stood. "The most dangerous enemy isn't the one who beats their chest and shows their strength." Dr. Collins finished the thought. "It's the one who has nothing to prove, because they already know they've won." "Oh no, I'm so sorry." Dr. James Martinez's voice cracked with apparent panic as his coffee cup clattered across the conference table, dark liquid splashing dangerously close to the holographic projector. The device flickered, causing Commander Zaxtil's image to distort momentarily. The alien commander's secondary arms twitched in undisguised irritation. "This is the third technical malfunction during our negotiations, Earth representatives. One might almost suspect." His voice trailed off as he watched Colonel Emily Walsh frantically dab at the spill with her uniform sleeve, making the situation demonstrably worse. "Please, Commander, just give us a moment to reset the systems." Colonel Walsh's fingers fumbled with the controls, somehow managing to invert the hologram's colors. I think I almost have it." From his command ship, Zaxtil added another note to his growing report on human incompetence. Their technical skills were even more limited than initial scans had suggested. His fleet's tactical officer, Sub-Commander Vexna, appeared at his side. "The orbital deployment is proceeding according to plan," Vexna reported, speaking in their native tongue to avoid the humans' primitive translation software. "Though there is something odd about their satellite network." "Odd?" Zaxtil's upper eye ridge raised slightly. "Some of our scans show momentary power fluctuations, but they're so brief and random that it must be their outdated technology failing." Vexna displayed a data readout. "See, the pattern is complete chaos." Deep below the Pacific Ocean's surface, Lieutenant Commander Michael Roberts watched the same power fluctuations on his quantum interface display and smiled. The random pattern was actually a complex encryption key being distributed through Earth's satellite network, disguised as system failures. "Quantum grid synchronization at 87%, his assistant reported. "The hegemony sensors are reading exactly what we want them to see." Roberts nodded, watching as another carefully choreographed technical failure played out in the negotiation room above. "And our friends up there. Dr. Martinez has successfully planted the quantum resonance tags via his accidental coffee spills. Colonel Walsh's malfunctioning controls have mapped their entire communication network. They think they're watching us fumble, but we're actually taking them apart, piece by piece." Roberts finished, his eyes fixed on the real data streams hidden behind the apparent chaos. Back in the negotiation room, Commander Zaxtil was reaching the limits of his patience. "Perhaps," he said, mandibles clicking in rapid annoyance, "we should continue this discussion once your equipment has been properly maintained by someone more competent." "Oh yes, thank you for your understanding," Colonel Walsh exclaimed, managing to knock over a water glass as she stood. "We'll have our best technical team look at it right away. Our very best. Which, might take some time, given our limited 6 hours, Zaxtil cut her off. "You have 6 hours before my fleet begins its final approach. I suggest you spend that time preparing your surrender documents rather than attempting to fix what is clearly beyond your capabilities." As the hologram faded, Dr. Martinez continued his apparent cleaning efforts, now speaking in a whisper. "Did you get what you needed, Admiral?" Admiral Carter's voice came through their secure neural links. Every second of interference gave us another piece of their command and control architecture. Lieutenant Commander Roberts' team has already found 3 critical vulnerabilities in their fleet's defense systems. "And the coffee?" Colonel Walsh asked, her previously clumsy movements now precise and controlled as she collected the cups. Each drop contained quantum tracking particles. "We can now monitor every ship in their fleet down to the individual weapon systems." There was a pause. "Though I have to ask, was the water glass really necessary?" Walsh allowed herself a small smile. "No, ma'am. That was just for fun. I think I'm getting a little too into character." "Just remember," the Admiral's voice carried a note of amusement, "we need to keep them believing we're harmless for just a few more hours. Once their fleet commits to the final approach vector, that's when we show them what primitive technology can really do." Martinez finished, looking out the window at the seemingly empty sky, where Earth's real defense grid waited, hidden and ready. Commander Zack still watched with satisfaction as his fleet moved into bombardment formation above Earth's major population centers. The planet's blue-white sphere filled his command deck's main viewport, deceptively peaceful against the backdrop of space. Final approach vector confirmed, Sub-Commander Vexna reported, her claws dancing across the tactical display. All ships report weapons are hot. And she paused, mandibles clicking in confusion. Sir, I'm detecting an anomaly in Sector 7. Show me, Zack still ordered, his secondary arms already reaching for the command controls. The tactical display shifted, zooming in on what appeared to be a cluster of space debris. As they watched, one of the pieces moved ever so slightly, a motion too precise to be natural. Scanning, Vexna's voice held a note of uncertainty. It appears to be one of their outdated defense platforms, but her voice trailed off as more objects began to move. Major Rachel Thompson's voice cut through their command channel, still maintaining that perfect mix of nervousness and resignation. Please, Commander, you don't need to target our old defense grid. Most of those satellites don't even work anymore. They're just left over from the Cold War. Zack still almost missed it. The slight emphasis on Cold War, the way her voice carried just a hint of something beyond fear. But 3 centuries of combat experience had taught him to trust his instincts. Scan all sectors, he barked. Full spectrum analysis. Sir, another officer called out, his voice rising in pitch. Movement detected in sectors 3 through 6. More debris. No, not debris. There, the officer's words failed as the tactical display exploded with new information. Thousands of objects, previously dismissed as space junk, began moving in perfect synchronization. What had appeared to be a random cloud of satellites and debris was transforming before their eyes into an intricate, 3-dimensional grid. Impossible, Vexna whispered. Our initial scans showed only 78 active satellites. This is, she checked the reading again, 8,342 distinct objects, all moving with military precision. Through the command channel, they heard Major Thompson sigh. You know, Commander, there's an old Earth saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Or in this case, her voice had lost all traces of fear, replaced by something that made Zack Still's spine plates tingle. One species' space debris is another species' defense network. Evasive maneuvers. Zack Still roared, but even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. His fleet, positioned for maximum offensive coverage, had inadvertently placed themselves into the perfect formation, perfect for being trapped. The debris continued its mesmerizing dance, each piece taking up a position that his tactical computer was now screaming was optimal for both defense and attack. They had been herded, he realized with growing horror. Every move his fleet had made over the past 6 hours had been calculated, anticipated, and used against them. Sir, one of his bridge officers called out, I'm detecting energy signatures unlike anything in our database. These aren't just platforms. They're some kind of. The officer's voice caught. The entire grid is quantum linked. Each piece is connected to every other piece simultaneously. Zack Still's upper eye ridge twitched as understanding dawned. The technical malfunctions during negotiations, the coffee spills, the dropped communications, were all perfectly executed moves in a game you didn't know you were playing. Major Thompson's voice was almost gentle now. Did you really think a species that survived its own Cold War, that learned to hide its deadliest weapons in plain sight, would leave its orbital space undefended? As if to emphasize her point, the grid began to pulse with a soft blue light. Each satellite, each piece of debris lit up in sequence, creating a web of energy that encompassed his entire fleet. This, Thompson said, all pretense gone from her voice. Is what real space superiority looks like, Commander. Would you like to see what else we've been hiding? Admiral Diana Foster's voice cut through the tense silence of the command channel, her tone carrying none of the submissive fear that had characterized earlier communications. Commander Zach Still, I believe it's time we had an honest conversation about Earth's military capabilities. Zach Still's bridge crew watched in stunned silence as their tactical displays began showing the impossible readings. Space itself seemed to ripple around their fleet, like waves disturbing a previously calm pond. Dimensional anomalies detected. Vexna's voice cracked with disbelief. Multiple signatures. By the first conquest, they're everywhere. The ripples coalesced into precise geometric patterns, and from them emerged ships, human ships, but not the primitive vessels their intelligence had reported. These were sleek, predatory craft that seemed to drink in light itself, their hulls decorated with subtle patterns that made the eye slip away unless directly focused upon. Impossible, Zach Still whispered, all four arms gripping his command chair. Your species barely has lunar capability. These ships, the energy readings, are exactly what we wanted you to see, Admiral Foster interrupted. A hologram of her appeared on his bridge, but unlike the previous transmissions, this one was crystal clear, without a hint of the earlier technical difficulties. Or rather, what we wanted your deep space monitoring stations to see for the past 50 years. One of the human vessels, a ship that by all rights shouldn't exist, performed a maneuver that had Zach Still's navigation officer making distressed clicking sounds. It moved through space as if the normal laws of physics were merely polite suggestions. Your gravity drive technology. The ship's captain, a human named Alexander Pierce, joined the conversation. We cracked that particular puzzle 20 years ago. Found some interesting ways to improve it too. His ship demonstrated by dancing through space in ways that made several of Zach Still's bridge crew visibly nauseous. But our scans, Vexna started, were exactly as accurate as we wanted them to be, Foster continued. With a gesture, she brought up a display showing the hegemony's own scan data. Your quantum encryption. We broke it 6 hours ago. Those technical difficulties during negotiations were used taking apart your command and control systems, piece by piece. Another ship emerged from a dimensional pocket, this one larger than the others. Its commander, Sarah Reynolds, spoke next. That primitive communications network you detected. Each satellite is actually a node in a quantum computing grid that makes your best AI systems look like children's toys. Zach Still watched as his tactical display updated with new information. The humans hadn't just surrounded his fleet. They had created a three-dimensional chessboard where every piece was a weapon, and his ships had been carefully maneuvered into perfect kill boxes. The coffee spills, he said, finally understanding. The dropped communications, the fumbled protocols, were all part of the game, Foster confirmed. Each accident let us plant quantum resonance tags throughout your fleet. We know the status of every system, every weapon, every shield generator on every one of your ships. As if to demonstrate, the quantum grid pulsed once. Throughout his fleet, shield systems cycled down and weapon systems went into safety mode, their controls completely overridden. This is a courtesy call, Commander. Foster's voice was almost kind. Your fleet is already defeated. Has been since the moment you entered our solar system. The only question now is whether you're wise enough to recognize it. Zach Still, veteran of 17 conquests, decorated commander of the hegemony's most successful invasion fleet, found himself doing something he had never done before. He laughed. Not the mocking sound from earlier, but a genuine expression of amazement. All this time, he said, looking at his own fleet through new eyes, we thought we were the hunters. Admiral Foster's hologram smiled. That, Commander, was your first mistake. Would you like to know what your second one was? Captain Nathan Brooks' ship, the Hyperion, glided through space with an elegant grace that made Zach Still's most advanced vessels look clumsy by comparison. The human ship's movement was more than just technical superiority. It represented something far more profound. Watch carefully, Commander. Brooks' voice carried a teacher's patience as his ship approached one of the hegemony's mighty dreadnoughts. We're going to demonstrate something important. A beam of soft blue light emerged from the Hyperion, touching the dreadnought's hull. In seconds, every system on the massive warship powered down, its crew unharmed, but their technology rendered completely inert. No energy weapons, Zach Still noted, his tactical mind racing. No destructive force. You could have vaporized the ship, but instead, we chose not to. Admiral Foster finished his thought. Just as we chose to let your fleet enter our space, chose to let you think you had the upper hand, chose to reveal our strength in this particular way. Vexna, still at her station, pulled up historical data on her console. Sir, I'm finding inconsistencies. Reports from other species, stories that didn't make sense until now. The Ardaxians claimed they found evidence of advanced human ships 2 years ago, but when we scanned the same region, you found nothing. Foster nodded. Because we didn't want you to find anything. The Ardaxians saw what they saw because we were testing their reactions. Learning. Studying. The realization hit Zach Still like a physical force. Every species we've encountered, they either fight until they're destroyed or submit immediately. But you, his upper eye ridge twitched in growing understanding. You chose a third path. Captain Brooks' ship completed another impossibly graceful maneuver, demonstrating yet another level of technology that the hegemony had deemed theoretically impossible. We learned long ago that true power isn't about who has the biggest guns or the strongest shields. It's about control, Zach Still said softly. Control of information, of perception, of the very battlefield itself. While we were conquering worlds through brute force, we were learning, Foster confirmed, from every species we encountered, from every technology we observed, from every strategy we witnessed. The hegemony sees a new technology and thinks, how can we use this to dominate? We see it and think, how can we improve this? What else can we learn from it? Another human ship emerged from a dimensional pocket, this one smaller but somehow even more advanced. Its captain, Maria Rodriguez, added her voice to the conversation. Your ships are powerful, Commander, but they're all variations on the same theme. Bigger guns, stronger shields, more brute force. We took a different approach. Zach Still watched as Rodriguez's ship demonstrated technology that made his scientists' most advanced theories look like a child's first attempts at engineering. You didn't just develop better weapons, he said, understanding finally dawning. You developed better ways of thinking. Now you're getting it. Foster's hologram smiled. Look at your fleet, Commander. Really look at it. What do you see? He did, and for the first time in his long military career, Zach Still saw his forces through different eyes. The standardized designs, the predictable tactics, the reliance on overwhelming force, it all seemed so limited now. I see stagnation, he admitted, each word carrying the weight of centuries of military doctrine being questioned. We thought we were evolving, advancing, but we were just building bigger versions of the same basic concepts. While we, Captain Brooks added, his ship completing another physics-defying maneuver, were asking questions no one else thought to ask. Like, what if space isn't just a battlefield? Or, what if the strongest position isn't the most obvious one? Zach Still's secondary arms moved in a gesture of deep contemplation. Your primitiveness was a mask, he said. But more than that, It was a mirror, showing us exactly what we expected to see, while behind it, Foster finished, was everything you never thought to look for. The question now, Commander, is what are you going to do with this new understanding? General Laura Harrison was reviewing tactical data in the Orbital Command Center when the private channel request came through. The source: Commander Zaxtil's personal quantum frequency, hidden from his own fleet's communications network. "This is unexpected," she said, accepting the transmission. "I thought the hegemony prohibited independent communication during combat operations." Zaxtil's hologram appeared before her, his posture noticeably different from their earlier encounters. Gone was the arrogant tilt of his head, the aggressive stance of his secondary arms. Instead, he stood with what the general recognized as thoughtful contemplation. "They prohibit many things, General," he replied, his voice carrying a new weight. "Independent thought chief among them. I'm beginning to understand why." Harrison leaned forward, studying the alien commander's body language. "And what exactly are you beginning to understand, Commander?" "That in all my years of conquest, all my victories and achievements, I was never once challenged to actually think." His upper eye ridge shifted in what she now recognized as their version of rueful amusement. "We call ourselves advanced, yet we haven't had a truly new idea in centuries. While we've been busy having nothing but new ideas," Harrison noted, testing the waters. "Precisely." Zaxtil activated a display, showing the current tactical situation. "Look at this. In 6 hours, you didn't just defeat my fleet. You revolutionized warfare itself. Each of your mistakes was a masterpiece of strategic thinking. The coffee spills, quantum tracking deployment, the communications failures, system analysis probes." Harrison allowed herself a small smile. "You're not just here to compliment our tactics, Commander." "No." His primary arms made a gesture she'd never seen before, something between a salute and a bow. "I'm here to offer something the hegemony has never encountered in its entire history. A senior commander's willing defection." The room went silent. Even the ambient hum of the command center's equipment seemed to hold its breath. "That's a significant offer," Harrison said carefully. "One that would come with considerable risk to both sides. The risk of remaining static is greater." Zaxtil's secondary arms moved in complex patterns, expressing emotions the universal translators weren't equipped to handle. "I've commanded fleets for 3 centuries, General. I've conquered 17 worlds, and in all that time, I never once questioned why we fight the way we do, why we think the way we think." He paused, looking out at the Earth fleet that had so thoroughly outmaneuvered his forces. "But you question everything. You take what others see as weaknesses and turn them into strengths. You don't just advance technology. You advance the very concept of what technology can be. And you want to be part of that?" Harrison asked, though she already knew the answer. "I want to learn." The words came with an intensity that surprised even him. "Not just your technology or your tactics. I want to learn how you think, how you question, how you see possibilities where we see only the brute force path." Harrison stood, walking to a display that showed both fleets, the hegemony's powerful but static formation, and Earth's fluid, adaptive defense grid. "You realize your knowledge of hegemony military operations would be valuable to us, just as my understanding of your approach to advancement would be valuable to them," Zaxtil countered. "But they would never ask the questions needed to learn from it. They'd try to weaponize it, to force it into their existing doctrine. They'd miss the most important lesson of all, which is that true power doesn't come from having the strongest weapons," he said, his voice carrying the weight of recent revelation. "It comes from having the wisdom to know when not to use them, from having the courage to question everything you think you know." General Harrison studied the alien commander for a long moment, seeing in him something she recognized from humanity's own history. The spark of Renaissance thinking, the first light of a mind breaking free from dogma. "Well then, Commander Zach Still," she said finally, "I believe we have a great deal to learn from each other." Dr. William Cooper stood before the holographic display in the Rocky Mountains Deep Analysis Facility, watching as Zach Still manipulated the three-dimensional star chart with all four arms. The former hegemony commander had been on Earth for 3 weeks now, and each day brought new revelations for both species. "Your strategic deployment here," Zach Still indicated a particular star system, "was especially brilliant. We completely missed the observation posts disguised as cometary bodies. While you were watching our primitive satellites," Cooper noted, "we were studying every aspect of hegemony military doctrine. Though I must admit, your insights have filled in gaps we didn't even know existed." The alien commander's upper eye ridge shifted, in what Cooper had learned was appreciation. The hegemony's weakness isn't in its technology, it's in its thinking. 3,000 years of conquest, and we never once considered that there might be a better way. Speaking of better ways, Admiral Foster's hologram materialized in the room. "Your analysis of our quantum grid has led to some interesting improvements. Our engineers never thought to use gravitational lensing to enhance the network's efficiency. Because you approached it as a communication system," Zach Still explained, his secondary arms moving in excited gestures. "We saw similar phenomena in deep space combat, but never thought to apply it this way. That's what fascinates me about humans. You don't just think outside the box. You question whether the box needs to exist at all." Cooper pulled up another display, this one showing the results of their latest joint research project. "Your understanding of hegemony shield harmonics, combined with our quantum entanglement theories, has created something entirely new. Neither pure human nor pure hegemony technology, but better than both," Foster added. "This is what real progress looks like. Not just taking what works, but finding new ways to make it work better." Zach Still moved to another display, where tactical data from his former fleet scrolled past. "I've been studying your historical records. Your Cold War, as you called it, it wasn't just a military standoff, was it? It was a crucible that forced you to think differently about power and how to use it. We learned the hard way that the strongest position isn't always the most obvious one," Cooper confirmed. "That sometimes the best way to win is to make winning itself irrelevant." "Which is exactly what you did with my fleet," Zach Still said, understanding dawning in his multifaceted eyes. "You could have destroyed us at any time, but instead, we chose to show you a better path," Foster finished. "Just as we're hoping you can help show others in the hegemony that there are alternatives to endless conquest." The alien commander's primary arms made a gesture of deep contemplation. "Already, my decision to defect has sent shockwaves through the hegemony's command structure. For the first time in centuries, questions are being asked that have no easy answers. And how does that make you feel?" Cooper asked, genuinely curious. "Alive," Zach Still replied without hesitation. "In 3 centuries of military service, I never felt as intellectually stimulated as I have in these past 3 weeks. Every day brings new questions, new possibilities, new ways of looking at problems we thought were already solved." Foster's hologram smiled. "That's the real secret of human innovation, Commander. We never think anything is truly solved. There's always room for improvement, always another question to ask, another angle to consider. Which is why," Zach Still said, looking at the star chart where both human and hegemony territory were displayed, "I believe you'll succeed where we failed. The hegemony seeks to dominate the galaxy. Humanity." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Humanity seeks to understand it, and in that understanding lies a power greater than any fleet or weapon." Cooper nodded, adding another dataset to their shared display. Ready to help us understand something new, Commander. Always, Zaxtil replied, all 4 arms ready to work. Though I suspect I'll learn far more than I teach. The secure communications chamber in the Rocky Mountains facility hummed with energy as Zaxtil stood before the quantum transmission array. Behind him, Admiral Foster and Dr. Cooper watched as he prepared to address the Hegemony High Command, his first communication with his former masters since his defection. "Are you sure about this?" Foster asked, though she already knew the answer. "They need to understand," Zaxtil replied, his voice carrying the weight of conviction. "Not just what they face, but what they could become." The transmission signal pulsed green, and the chamber filled with the imposing holograms of the Hegemony War Council, 7 of the most powerful military leaders in known space, their armor decorated with the marks of countless conquests. "Commander Zaxtil," High Marshal Vex Thor's voice dripped with contempt. "Or should we say Traitor Zaxtil?" "Neither title fits anymore," Zaxtil responded, standing straighter than he ever had during his centuries of service. "I come before you not as a commander or a traitor, but as someone who has seen what the future could be." He gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic data. The true capabilities of Earth's defense systems, their technological achievements, their philosophical approaches to advancement. "You see this, and think only of weapons to seize, technologies to steal," he continued. "But you're missing the most important thing, just as I did at first." "And what?" Another council member sneered. "Would that be?" "That humanity's greatest weapon isn't their technology or their strategies." Zaxtil's secondary arms moved in a complex pattern that expressed both sadness and hope. "It's their ability to question everything, to never stop learning, to see possibilities where we see only obstacles." The display shifted, showing the quantum grid that had so effortlessly contained his fleet. "Look at this. Really look at it. They didn't just build better defenses, they reimagined what defense could be. While we were building bigger ships and stronger weapons, they were asking questions we never thought to ask." "They are primitive," High Marshal Vex Thor insisted, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. "No," Zaxtil corrected gently. "They are different, and in that difference lies a power greater than anything in the Hegemony's arsenal. I've learned more in 1 month with them than I did in 3 centuries of conquest." He brought up new data, showing the joint projects he'd been working on. "This isn't just about military might. It's about evolution, not just of technology, but of thought itself. They don't just adapt to challenges. They transform them into opportunities." "You would have us abandon 3,000 years of tradition," another council member demanded. "I would have you grow beyond it," Zaxtil answered. "The galaxy is changing. The old ways of conquest and domination. They're not just inefficient, they're obsolete. Humanity has shown me a path forward that I never knew existed." He straightened to his full height, all 4 arms moving in the formal gesture of absolute truth, a motion that none could ignore. "You will not conquer Earth," he declared. "Not because their weapons are superior, though they are. Not because their strategies are better, though they are. You will not conquer Earth because they have already won a victory far greater than military might. They have shown that there is a better way." The council chamber erupted in angry protests, but Zaxtil continued, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I stand before you as living proof. Your greatest fleet commander, veteran of 17 conquests, chose to join them not because of defeat, but because of understanding. Every attempt you make against Earth will only result in more of your leaders coming to the same realization I did." His final words rang through the chamber with the force of prophecy. The age of conquest is over. An era of innovation and cooperation has begun. You can either be part of that future, or you can watch as it passes you by. The choice, as humanity has taught me, is yours to make. As the transmission ended, the stunned silence in the council chamber spoke volumes. They had expected a traitor's excuses, but what they got was something far more dangerous. A vision of a future they could barely comprehend.